Welcome to Living from the Heart. I am your host, Tina Thrussell, co-founder of Best You Can Be and messenger of the Shin, the way of the heart. The way of the heart is living the way of love, kindness, peace, and compassion. Compassion for yourself and love for yourself first. For it is only until you have that for yourself that you can truly give from your overflow. Today, I am delighted to be reunited with John Stringer. I met John a couple of years ago when he came to Calgary and was the guest speaker at Unity of Calgary. He brought his beautiful music, his enchanting messages, and I fell in love with the man. I'm delighted to have him on the show with us today. He's an international speaker, a teacher, a personal spiritual guide, music singer-songwriter. He has his own production company for music, I believe. He covers a lot of territory, and all of that territory is coming purely from his heart. It's what fuels him and feeds him, and this is why he had to be on the show with me today. So just before I bring John on screen, I'd like to invite you to receive a complimentary subscription to Heart and Mind Matters. This is an e-zine that is emailed out every other Tuesday morning with an inspirational article, a quote of the week, a YouTube video, and it's intended as an uplift in your week. It's absolutely complimentary, and you can receive it by going to bestyoucanbe.ca. That's BEST, the letter U, CAN, the letter B.ca. And now, without any further delay, I welcome John Stringer. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Good to see your bright, shiny, smiling face.
Oh, and that goes both ways. My goodness. I remember so well that weekend that you came and you were speaking at Unity, and I think what a blessing it was for me that whoever was supposed to be hosting you that weekend, something happened. They weren't
That's
able to.
right.
You ended up staying in my home. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I get this man all to myself. This is amazing.
So cool.
And we just had some wonderful conversations.
Really
And
good. Yeah.
as I say, you're a man who truly lives from your heart.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I had such a wonderful time. I was going to say, I remember one of our conversations being around Wim Hof at the time. And you were one of the people that inspired me to continue pursuing that line of breath work and what he offered. So had a great conversation with you about that, I recall.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Well, there's absolutely no doubt that breath is the key to life, right?
Yes.
When we're present to our breath, we're present to life.
Absolutely.
And as a singer, the breath is really important for you.
Very much so. Yes. And I found, in fact, both as a singer, both as someone exploring expansion and awareness, it can be a valuable tool. The irony is when we spoke about breath work, my experience with it, I think at that time I had an incredible experience of, just feeling like I was levitating and expanded and then trying to get myself back in my body my first time. Then once I found out about Wim Hof, I began to practice his method in the cold water immersion, things like that. And was just amazed at the shifts and just energy and presence and things you could feel from that as well. So there's so many different forms of breath work that are available to us, which is just powerful. So I'm very grateful for that tool and grateful for our conversation. You having been a student of Wim Hof and got to see firsthand how things worked with him. So it was really cool.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes. So I want to jump right into this key point. I recall reading, maybe it was on your website, maybe it was something that your beautiful wife, Kathy, sent me, but how you help people access genius through spirituality, through intuition, and Oh, there was a third point. What was the third point?
I can't say I recall off the top of my head, but I'm sure it'll come up. Well, I'll tell you, I love calling um, genius that, because I think it's a synonym for so many things, from inspiration to spirit to our connection with source, to whatever. But whatever people call it, I like genius because I think it's universal. And the way I help people is just sharing what I've been learning, as a quote. The way I hear it is I'm a life teacher. And all that really means is I'm learning lessons from life as a student of life, and I'm sharing them, you know, and anybody can do that. So it doesn't take anything special other than you surrendering, right? And so my service to people is to give them methods that work, or to give them the principles that are universal so they can find the methods that work to expand their awareness and access the genius we all have. What's our truly our, not in the cliche sense, but in the real sense, our birthright. It's truly ours to access and ours to expand into. And the reason, one of the things we have to recognize is the conditioning and the limited conditioned thinking that is often what we've been holding ourselves back with from our genius. And that comes from society, from all sorts of things. But once we can recognize that these limitations are often the reason not only we're not accessing our genius and our birthright, but are also the very source of our suffering, then we can begin to say, okay, I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to start surrendering. And when you're in that space, I like the way I like to think Yeshua or Jesus taught that you're poor in spirit when you're finally at that recognition of, okay, I'm ready to surrender and let go. You know, I don't have the answers. I am poor. I am in need of surrendering and finding what's real. And so helping people do that and tap into whatever this power is, whatever this mysterious, beautiful power is that we have access to. I see it time and time again. I see it transform my own experience in any moment. I've seen it transform the lives and experiences others create. And I think we can all see it if we're open to it, but more importantly, we can all experience it. And so that's what I help people do. So genius, to expand on the way that it comes through for people, I help them recognize it can come through in so many ways. But the higher the more we're able to surrender, expand our awareness, and begin to choose differently or access higher levels of consciousness, we begin to pick up on the subtler information that's available to us. And that comes in the different modalities of thinking. So all of those resources can be used, and we can begin to pick up on the spiritual information and these divine messages and frequencies in all sorts of ways, from visual modalities to kinesthetic modalities, all these different ways that we can receive this divine birthright and begin to express it and create with it. Some people that do that with multiple modalities are called synesthetes, for example. Synesthesia.
I've never heard that term.
So a synesthete, or those who have synesthesia, are those who we often recognize as genius. They are the people who can access levels of consciousness and information and bring it through in creative ways or inspired ways using multiple modalities such as visual and audio. For example, Jimi Hendrix, Mozart, they were known to have been able to see music and hear it. Well, in Mozart's case, it was see it and transcribe it.
Right.
But he could compose it from the visual information he would access. But it's just a different way of, different modality of accessing this information, this creative information that's ours to access. And so beginning to navigate that and learn how to do that is how the genius expresses. So to show people different exercises, different ways to practice. And my favorite way of receiving is cognition, like knowing things you shouldn't, like why do you know this? How do these things come through? And like these whole teachings. And remember the first time I heard the word source instead of God, and I'm getting all these messages coming through, and begin to share that, and then begin to see it in other teachers' works. And so there's just beautiful things as we learn to trust that intuition and the experiences we have, build our faith. And that faith, in my experience, becomes there's an old Christian scripture, I wish I could remember it verbatim, but it talks about the evidence of things hoped for, or the evidence of things unseen, something along those lines. I love that that sentiment, because that's what I feel, that expansion and that connection, that oneness that we have comes through those modalities and gives us that evidence of things that we don't see, but we all hope for things to be well and that everything will be beautiful. And in reality, once we transcend the limited condition thinking, it is. So that's the long and short of what I can say on that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know, my eyes have been traveling a little, because we're
Sure.
getting a bunch of Facebook and YouTube comments. So we have people who are live watching with us.
Hello,
Constance
everybody.
Marshall, of course, your wonderful wife, Kathy, my
Yay.
husband, Neil. He
Neil.
was pointing out that, I did have to share you with him a little when you were here.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh.
So what a great time we had too. And by the way, Calgary is so beautiful. Oh my goodness. I came at a record time. Got I think you all had like record snowfall or something like that. And it was still just gorgeous. I can't wait to see it when it's not just snow.
Yeah, it can be very beautiful and lush and green, but yes, it was very, very cold. Yes, I remember. I mean, you come from the southern states, right?
That's right. Yeah. It was cold I'd never experienced before. And that's a good segue into something. What I'm consistently experiencing is the going into something new, like Calgary, for example, in the coldest weather I'd ever experienced, was uncomfortable, right? And in fact, I had to borrow a different type of coat because my coat was useless. It was cutting through, right? But I'm learning that as we're listening and surrendering, we get led into these new environments and new experiences internally as well as externally that aren't always comfortable. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes us dawning new behaviors, us dawning new ways of choosing or new practices, because the old stuff that we've been using just doesn't cut it anymore in this new environment, So I'm learning to flow with that as well. That's been consistent, but seeing it more and more, it's just beautiful how life is. I think a lot of us are receiving that now with this current world affairs and state of things. A lot of us are having to let go of these old coats we've had, put them down, and don something new to be able to find our way through and adjust to this new environment. And honestly, I also think it's a new before things got to exactly this was being shown, it's a new time for us to step through. Like there's the opportunity to step through these portals that are opening for us. And for those who are willing and ready and choose to, there's this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to expand. And it's not necessarily comfortable, but it's going to expand our awareness in ways that, some of us may not want to necessarily expand in these ways, but it's for the best for all concerned, you know?
Yeah, I like to say that things happen for the highest good. And
Yep.
as you say, when we surrender and allow, just be in that flow, it we may not like it, but it is easier when we are in that place of surrender and allowing that flow.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
I remember, and it's interesting, I remember so distinctly, and now it's flipped out of my head. But one of the things you had was this 3 word.
Oh,
Was it
yes.
release, align, and allow?
That very, very similar. Align, allow, let go.
Okay.
So the wonderful story behind that is when my wife and I first began to attempt to access like our angels, our spirit guides, and listen and hear, for example. Um, I was before that point meditating, and I'd had the experience of this energy going up the back of my spine, my head moving back, and like seemed like involuntarily and being freaked out and all that kind of stuff. I'd had that experience, looked it up, had the experience of seeing 1111 nonstop, looked that up, and all these interesting experiences. Um, but when I heard about channeling and things like that, I was very resistant and fearful of it. Um, until things started to happen to show me it was time. Now I can explain it to others who have those same condition and limited thinking
Mhm.
that Yeshua, Jesus, was one of the coolest channelers in the New Testament Bible I'd seen, where he talked about what he brought through was from the Father, and he would hear it the way the Father wanted him to tell it, and that's how he'd speak it, right? Just straight channeling from this higher level of consciousness, the I am, the Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it. When I began to do that, the first thing that came out of my mouth as the energy began to move up and move my mouth and the words would come out was align. Had no idea what it meant, but I felt it as we kept coming, align, align. And during the session, my wife's there. We're channeling partners. She's asking the questions and writing stuff down, and I'm bringing it through. And what was explained was how it was the first time I'd heard it put the way I received it, but that we are here to be limitless love and light. And we do that best as we align with the source of who we are. We are limitless love and light, but the expression of it, when it's brightest or when it feels best, let's just say, it's when we're aligned with source. That's the most harmonious experience of it. And so aligning with the source of who we are was first thing. So that whole phrase, align, allow, let go, eventually came out. And that's what I was practicing. Done that for since 2008, I guess. So however long that's been. But I finally, one day I asked, after doing Michael Beckwith's life visioning and practicing that, and I would hear him talking about spiritual technology. I'm like, so cool. So I just asked, I said, I'd love to have a spiritual technology to share. And that's when I got, you do the thing you've been practicing, align, allow, let go. I'm like, oh, so I began to teach and share that, begin to download like workshops. And it was just amazing how I never envisioned I'd be doing and sharing the things that I receive. But I believe that when we begin to surrender, that expansion takes us into new territory, even in the roles that we play with life. And it's all for the service of all, the service, this universal service, let's just call it, of how we begin to share our gifts for the world to uplift others and raise the frequency of all humanity, of all sentience. And so we begin to be fulfilled by this amazing alignment with what I truly believe is our soul's blueprint. That's the way I hear it. It's really the soul's blueprint that we're aligning, and we're beginning to step into the roles that our soul's blueprint are designed for. And we become these vessels of this divine, beautiful love and this light that begins to assist others in powerful ways, in ways we don't even quite comprehend, but it's so beautiful. It's such a wonderful way um, to experience the truth of who we are, such just a beautiful way. And so I've been very grateful. That's where that align, allow, let go. It's called I hear it different ways, but often it's called a method or spiritual technology, whatever you want to call it, meditation. But that's the kind of
whatever the word
origin
is.
story.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the process, the technique, the whatever.
Technique, exactly. Whatever you want to call the practice, whatever you want to call it.
And it's so beautiful because as you speak it, I feel it. I feel that pure love source just shining through. And that's exactly what you're saying when you're in that aligned place, when you let go of, and explain, what is the letting go? I see it as letting go of the wanting to be in control, the letting go of thinking that I know.
Yep. I think it's all of that. And I think we talked about a little bit using the word surrender. I think it's partly surrender, partly a willingness,
Mhm.
a letting go of the resistance, the fear, anything that is not in harmony with what's now. Typically, sometimes it's the meaning we're creating, that limited condition thinking. Sometimes it's the subtle resistance to even sensation or even the attachment to sensation. And sometimes it's so many different, it can be whatever. But what I've noticed is when I'm doing it and how I hear it and often guided to share it is your inner being knows exactly what it means. Your inner being knows exactly how to respond in that moment and what you need as you're aligning with that source. And then what begins to unfold is exactly what's perfect for your experience, whether it's you're in fear and you're aligning and all of a sudden the perfect insights begin to come so you can feel calm, or whether it's your awareness begins to expand to the sensation and where you're holding the tension and you begin to relax, or whether it's you notice you're breathing shallow, the awareness expands into your breathing, whatever it is, it just works. For now, I'm not saying align, allow, let go is a magic technology that works for everybody. I think it could, but you really just have to find what works for you. It's really not about that specific tool. That's one tool for people that resonate with it. Great, use it. But truly, the key is finding practices that work for you in any moment. I'm going to plug up my computer. I just noticed it wasn't charging. I just got the low energy. I gotta plug in, right? Yeah, that's another good analogy for sometimes you notice, hey, it's time to plug in. You better watch for the signs, right? But yeah, that finding the practices that work for us, I think, is the one of the principles that I think is part of our journey and that strengthen us almost as if, like, let's say you have a desire and you're trying to create something and you're chasing it and doing things, it's not working. It's the journey that actually strengthens us and allows us to find what we need, strengthening our will to find that solution. And eventually we finally exhaust ourselves enough to where if we hadn't been looking within, we finally go within, and we strengthen our will enough to go within and to take the time to find those practices and use the practices that assist us in alignment. So that's been the truth of my journey. I mean, I faced fear last night, and just really my consciousness begin, what I was guided to watch and see begin to expand, and seeing things revealed that weren't quite aware of, that can be frightening if you look at them from just a lower level of the physical world and just this level. But remembering that alignment helps us expand into the truth and the essence, and allows us to look at it from a different perspective that knows the truth of who we are cannot be harmed, and knows that the fear is the illusion we're creating based on our attachment to this physical experience, right? So that,
Yeah.
to me, that's genius. That's, the genius of not the idea, but the knowing and the experiencing in the moments that we are creating the suffering, to be able to choose and use our will to align and expand and listen to that knowing that calms us. That is my saving grace.
Mm.
So sharing that with others, no matter what they're going through, I feel like it's such a power that I haven't found anything else that has a true lasting peace and relief when we're able to focus our eyes on that alignment and what that power brings and gives. I'm just grateful for it,
Yeah.
very grateful.
Oh, yes. And so your beautiful wife, Kathy, pointed out that you have this wonderful meditation in your Facebook group,
Yes,
Align, Allow, Let Go.
that's right.
And so I put that on the screen. I think that's
Thank you.
in there long enough for people to catch
And that's
that.
a free group. Love
Nice.
anyone can join it. There's 5 components to what we call the tri-harmony. In fact, Wim Hof method is included in breath work in one of them. And we give a lot of free resources and free meditations and the practices that I use in the morning for that mind, body, spirit alignment is essentially
Oh,
what we share.
what a beautiful gift to the world. Thank you.
Yes, our pleasure.
Oh my goodness. Um, I had hoped we might get a little bit of opportunity to hear your beautiful expression of source through song.
Oh, yes.
Um, so is
I'd
there
be
something that comes
delighted.
to mind to you to share right now?
Yes. My wife told me to have my guitar handy, so I have it handy. And I'd love to play something. Interestingly, I don't know how this will sound. I've never been on this platform before, so hopefully it'll come through clearly. Let me just test the level. Check 1, 2. Hey, is that okay? That level?
Sounds good
Okay.
on my end.
Good. So I'll since we're talking about this topic, I'll play this song. It's called You'll Be Just Fine. If you've ever felt the guilt or felt the shame, if you've ever wondered why you feel the pain, I can tell you how to finally let it out. And it works if you can just let go the doubt. It's a now you know type of story, so I'll tell you things to make it right. 'Cause you'll be just fine, and you'll be alright. Let this go by if you just align right now, right now, align right now. It's the fear that makes you think that something's wrong, but it's not why you have come to sing alone. What do I give? When do I say? When my fears come and love still stays to let me know there's always nothing wrong. What can I do to feel the truth? I will tell you all you need to hear. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When fear comes calling and you are falling, you won't fall from the love that's always here. 'Cause you'll be just fine, and you'll be alright. Let this go by. If you just align right now, right now, align right now. And all my fears I made simple mistakes, and I am still the same, yeah, yeah, yeah. And all my fears are made simple mistakes, and I am still the same, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That was the
Mm.
short version. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much for sharing. I love that song. I think it's one of
Oh,
my
thank you.
favorites.
Grateful. May I tell a story about it?
Sure.
So the way I receive music is that very method I was talking about: align, allow, let go. The same free one we share in the VIP group. But I took time. I heard to go after one of the retreats we hosted to go and stay for 3 days at the place, a very rural place. It was a beautiful mansion, but it's out in the woods, beautiful nature. And I got to stay there for myself, like a silent retreat, solo silent retreat. But it wasn't
Mm.
really silent for 3 days, and didn't do much talking except to the host, the owner of the mansion, when I'd go get meals. But the rest of the time I spent meditating, listening, and asking what songs were to come through. And I receive them, I grab my guitar, I just write down. I'm just recording, and spent the whole 3 days doing that. Just beautiful. Maybe 4 days, I can't remember. But that song came through about what we've been talking about, aligning, and really about overcoming. Now I see a little bit more overcoming that whole idea of separation,
Mhm.
that belief that we're somehow separate from our good in any moment, that we're somehow separate from, the oneness. Which wouldn't make sense. If there's oneness, then how could you be separate from it, right? But the beautiful part is the experience and the knowing of it. So it talks about, how do you do that? How do you know it so you can be set free from the fear? And the irony of what I've learned, not only through that song, but through the practice of applying what it talks about. The irony is, yes, we can choose to forget again. We can choose to re-experience, like that wonderful movie, The Matrix. Re-experience diving back into the illusion, and some of us might want to forget. But we do. Through my experience, I've noticed I do choose. So it's tools like that, even music, that help remind me sometimes. Oh yeah, this would be a great time to align, to be present, to be centered, to be here now. All synonyms for the same thing. So yeah, that song is, I think, a good snapshot. Really all the songs I have on my latest album, plug, by the way, called Moment to Moment. It's about aligning from moment to moment. That's the funny thing. So the title is literally about alignment. But moment to moment, all those songs just came through and were songs I received to, when I asked that simple question, what is it? What's best and highest for all concerned? that this song is supposed to be or sound like or say, and would tune in. It would come so much more effortlessly than my old methods of writing. So, and it feels better. Feels like I can feel, even when I'm singing, when I'm expressing, I can feel the frequencies and are connected to it. And it's very expansive. I know. Well, yeah. So anyhow, sometimes I get feedback from people who can see energy and different things, and they'll often talk about, man, I can see wings, or I can see this, that, and the other is of this light. This is cool. And I feel like that's because when we align and when we're making ourselves available, those frequencies that come through are such a higher level in frequency, such expanded frequency. And so sometimes you can feel it in a different way. It feels expansive, it feels good, it feels sacred. It's like that divine presence is so beautiful. So I'm very grateful to be able to share the music, and thank you for allowing me to.
And thank you for sharing it. And I've got this comment from Neil. Oh, Tina, you rebel. You're going overtime. Love it.
Did we go overtime? That's so funny. May I, there was one thing I wanted to share. May I share it before we wrap up?
Sure.
My wife often reminds me of this, and it's been popping up in my awareness, that there are a lot of people who may find themselves in the position of not knowing how do I align? How do I begin to tap into that genius? And how do I recognize the genius from the conditioned limited thinking or the egoic conditioning? How do I do that? Well, that's partly what I've learned is experience, practice, and the experience assist you in recognizing it. It's always there, but sometimes we might need some reminders of how to see it. And so that's another thing we offer. If you join our, on the website, johnstringerinc.com, if you join that newsletter there, I often send out the information. We have some free trainings, in fact, to help people begin to recognize how the spiritual world communicates. The genius that we recognize as, for example, mathematical genius, it's communicated in symbols. There's lots of documentation and interviews. You can do your own research around that. But the same thing goes for our intuitive, what we call intuitive genius. The same thing goes for our musical genius. There are different ways that information is communicated that you can recognize, and you're probably receiving it. So we just help you recognize that more. So if people are interested in learning how to expand that way, love to give them some free resources to do that. We have paid courses too, but if you'd like that as well, feel free to reach out to us as well for that.
That is beautiful. Oh my gosh. There are so many gifts that you offer to the world. Just the presence of being who you are, your beautiful music, the sessions that you offer for people. I noticed somebody was making a comment like, I'm really overdue for a session. I'm going to message you. There's the free meditation. There's all the resources that you're offering through your newsletter, through your website. Yeah. So giving. You have such a giving heart, and we are so blessed. Thank you.
I appreciate it. It's been a blessing to be with you, and a blessing to experience your loving heart, your giving heart, because it takes a giving heart to be able to create a platform like this as well. And I'm sure you're continuing your expansion. I've seen firsthand the beauty of who you are in your soul. So no doubt you're continuing to expand in beautiful ways. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to invite you to go to the YouTube link so you can see all these wonderful people who are here and all their comments. Cool. I've thrown up a couple of Kathy's comments with your website here, the johnstringerinc.com. She had the webitation.
I like that. A new word.
That's fun. Yes, agreement. John is a great blessing, says Sean. So we thank you so much for being with us, for sharing your precious time with us. And many blessings to you and the work that you're bringing into the world, John.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Blessings to you and your family. Much love to Neil as well. And thank you again for having me on the show.
All right. Definitely our pleasure. So it's time to say ciao for now. Tune in next week with my next wonderful guest on Living from the Heart. Bye for now.